You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. And you may notice we're joined by a special guest today as we're going to dive into an Arizona State Sun Devil breakdown. And it's great to be joined by Hode Rubino of ASUDevils.com, part of the Rivals Network. Hode, appreciate the time, man. Thanks for joining us today.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And we are excited. That's right. New Big 12 brethren, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Are you feeling the fever out there? Because I know, at least from a leadership standpoint, it kind of seemed like the pitchforks were aimed at the Big 12 conference, trying to fend them off. But what's kind of the pulse of the fan base?
Well, first of all, we're feeling the fever because it's already 110 degrees out here, in the Valley of the Sun. So that's one reason why we're feeling the fever. But yeah, I think definitely ASU fans are definitely excited. They definitely have their issues with the Pac-12 leadership, just how the way this conference handled, or more importantly, didn't handle their business. And I think that the Big 12 was definitely a more logical regional marriage than Stanford and Cal going to ACC, or the LA schools in Oregon and Washington going to the Big 10. So, going to Texas, and I know there'll be some trips to West Virginia, Orlando down the road. I know Cincinnati's already this year. But nonetheless, I think those are trips that are easy for fans to get to. I mean, heck, you got a team like Oklahoma State that just by fluke ASU actually played the last 2 years, and now they're going to play pretty much on a regular basis. And you guys know that ASU was in Lubbock not too long ago. I think just about 7-8 years ago. So I think there's some familiar territory over here. But I think ASU fans are definitely excited to be part of the Big 12.
Hode, along those lines, what were other realistic options? Like, whenever you see kind of the landscape changing, was there anything that anybody else was hoping for, or was it like, man, if this thing breaks apart, I mean, the Big 12 is a no-brainer? I mean, just kind of take us through the dynamic, I don't know, about a year ago, whenever it was still somewhat uncertain.
Yeah, look, I have no problem admitting that Arizona State was not the quote-unquote sexy name like the LA schools and the huge TV market that they bring, or teams like Oregon and Washington, to be considered to anything else but the Big 12. I mean, sure, ASU could have been stuck with Washington State and Oregon State, what's known now as the Pac-2. But ironically, out of the four schools that are joining the Big 12, Colorado and Arizona, I think, definitely had more of a desire to move than ASU and Utah. And again, I'm not talking from a fan base perspective or even the coach's perspective, just from the leadership of the university perspective. But I think that once the Arizona State university president realized that it's a foregone conclusion, that's really going to be Big 12, or you're going to be stuck in no man's land with Oregon State and Washington State, who are playing football schedule with the Mountain West and basketball schedule with the WCC. I mean, it's a total mess over there. So when you got a school the size of Arizona State, one of the biggest schools in the country, it just really made sense to go to the Big 12. But to answer your question, in terms of going to another power conference, it really was Big 12 or bust.
Well, I'm excited to have both of the Arizona schools in the Big 12 conference. We've got a little old-time border conference beef, maybe more so with the Wildcats, but a little bit with the Sun Devils as well. And I think the western half of the conference could really be a lot of fun as far as ginning up some rivalries and ginning up some of that competition that makes college football so great. But as for the football with Arizona State, man, really curious as you guys head into the year to kind of gauge the pulse on that front, because I know, as Chris has described to me in off-the-air conversation, kind of an impossible task when you're talking about Kenny Dillingham and entering his second year. But obviously we had to go through last year and knowing about the postseason. So I bet there's a whole lot of anxiousness and chomping at the bit, so to speak, to get this season started.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think when you finish 3-9, there's no way to go but up, pretty much. And I think the Arizona State fans are definitely hoping that this move to the Big 12 is really going to be a true turning of the page, and this team can play at a much better level than they did last year. Now, realistically, I don't think this is an Arizona State team that can win 7, 8, 9 games, even though maybe the Big 12 is perceived to be not as demanding of a conference as the Pac-12 was last year. I mean, you just have to take a look at the NFL draft and all the quarterbacks that were drafted over there from the Pac-12 to realize there really was a murderer's row of a schedule for Arizona State and a lot of other teams in the Pac-12. So I think that the ASU on the one hand is definitely taking the Big 12 seriously. They know there's going to be some formidable competition there, but they're just hoping that some new surroundings can really translate into a new beginning to this team. Like I said, anytime you have a first-year head coach with a roster that was very, very brand new, I mean, second only to Colorado, and Colorado's just another level of roster turnover over there. There definitely was going to be a vicious learning curve that Arizona State had to go through. A lot of key injuries at quarterback, a lot of key injuries on offense that really made the work for that side of the ball that much harder. I think the defense actually played some decent football September and October, but November, the lack of depth really showed with some pretty sizable losses there. So I think Arizona State is definitely excited to enter the Big 12. They believe they have a better team on both sides of the ball talent-wise. And, a second-year head coach I think is always better than a first-year head coach. So I think there's some optimism in Tempe, but I think it's also caustic optimism. I don't think that anybody at Arizona State thinks they can just come and take the Big 12 by storm and contend for the championship crown in the first year. But they probably think they can do a little better than the Cincinnatis and the Houstons of the world that definitely had a rude welcome going into the Big 12. Arizona State definitely hopes not to be in the same boat in 2024.
Hode, how much did describe the Herm Edwards tenure to me? Did he set the program back? I mean, take me through that dynamic of how that will be remembered and what your opinion is on is Arizona State in this position right now because Herm Edwards, was detriment to? I mean, just kind of take me through that dynamic.
First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And summertime means baseball, burgers, and money in the bank when you get to picking winners with FanDuel. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's right, $200 you can use to cool off and beat the heat with a refreshing parlay. An over-under play, or by getting the moneyline mojo going. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make a splash by adding a big win to your summer bucket list with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Is Arizona State in this position right now because Herm Edwards, was detriment to? I mean, just kind of take me through that dynamic.
Yeah, I think it was a hire that a lot of national pundits did criticize. I was willing just to give it time to see how it would all work out. But I think Herm Edwards' biggest mistake was that he just delegated to the wrong people. He was really asleep at the wheel a lot of the time, didn't care a whole lot about recruiting, didn't care a whole lot about a lot of different aspects of the program. Really just wanted to be that head coach that was really a figurehead and not really involved that much, with the X's and O's. And I think that ASU tried just a little too hard to be brazen and shrewd when it came to recruiting during the pandemic. I'm not here to make excuses, but I know that everybody was doing what Arizona State did recruiting-wise. ASU was unfortunately able to piss the wrong people, have a couple of really, really disgruntled ex-employees that were happy to spill the beans and just to take down the program as a result of that. So it definitely is a dark era of Arizona State, just having NCAA sanctions that ASU is still dealing with as we speak. Thankfully for them, it's going to be done after the 1st of August, although scholarship-wise, they still took a minimal hit. They can only have 84, not 85 scholarships this year. But I think that overall, it was definitely a very, very dark era at Arizona State. A lot of mishandlings, starting by university president through the now former athletic director at Arizona State, and obviously through a coaching staff that 99% of it is just not here in Tempe anymore. definitely a hard lesson learned that there's no easy shortcuts for success. And just because you're going to hire a bunch of big names from the NFL that does anything but guarantee success. So definitely a dark era in Arizona State history. And going back to my earlier point, now being in a brand new conference, you really think that ASU can turn the page and really put that dark time in the way back in the rearview mirror.
Let's talk some personnel, and I know that Chris wants to talk ASU quarterbacks with you, but first let's get to our selfish interest because we want to know about the guy that came out to Lubbock and Jalin Conyers, man. He's one of those that we're really excited to have in Lubbock, have on the roster, and we hear a lot about versatility and clearly what he could do as a tight end, but some other ways he was used. So what was your read on Conyers in his time there at Arizona State?
First of all, you guys in Lubbock realize he can play quarterback too, right? Because he was tasked with that.
That's what we've heard.
No, there's Phil. There's nothing to hear. There's actually Phil on that.
Hey, and we've needed a few backups in recent years. All right, so yeah, we're ready for it.
I'm curious to see if Conyers is going to reassume that role in Lubbock this year. But all jokes aside, I think Conyers kind of leaves Tempe with that untapped potential label, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think he's someone that because of various injuries and maybe not having always the offensive coordinators to use him correctly, really did not reach the surface of his potential and really hasn't showed everything that he can. I mean, there were more than a couple of flashes here and there, but I think honestly that ASU fans would be disappointed that Jalin Conyers did not have the career that they expected him to have. There's so much talk for so many years now about Arizona State really making sure they can use their tight ends in an efficient way, really make it a staple of the offense. And we heard so many declarations in the past, and some of the declarations were by offensive coordinators that did have Jalin Conyers at their disposal, and for one reason or another, just did not utilize him correctly. But I also think Jalin Conyers, still kind of leaves Arizona State, being a disappointment. Hopefully, being closer to home in Lubbock can really be that new fresh start for him. I'm not going to be shocked if he does really well in Lubbock, to be honest, because I think he definitely has the God-given talent to do it. But I think again, when you talk to the average ASU fan about Jalin Conyers, they're really disappointed that he didn't do much more than he did in Tempe. But again, maybe a new home can be a new beginning for Conyers.
All that talk about utilizing tight ends, Chris, that sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it does. Absolutely. If you want to win, throw it to the tight end. Take us through the quarterback race in the spring. I don't know if everybody expected Sam Levitt to win the job. I don't know, the situation with Jalin Rashada, which blew up, and he's now transferred to Georgia, and he had some injuries and things like that. But was Sam Levitt winning the job expected in the transfer from Michigan State? Just kind of take us through that dynamic.
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, with Jalin Rashada, who's now at Georgia, and somebody that just had drama really being a staple of his recruitment, being a staple of his college career too, did not suit up for the beginning of spring practice because of a non-football injury that took place back in January. I think that, yes, that Sam Levitt was in a great position to win that job, even though he played only 4 games for Michigan State last year, coming here as a redshirt freshman. So not that Jalin Rashada had a lot of experience under his belt as a college quarterback, but Sam Levitt was basically in the same boat as well. So I think Jalin Rashada inadvertently, I would say, really just gave the starting job to Sam Levitt because he was the most talented signal caller there in spring. Jalin Rashada did try to hurry back from his injury because he really wasn't expected to participate in team segments for the entire spring practice, and maybe trying to rush back to action a little too quickly is something that did hurt him because Sam Levitt was clearly outplaying him, and Jalin Rashada realized that when spring practice ended, it was not going to be the starting quarterback, and throughout fall camp, there was a real possibility of him losing the starting job. And I just think that's just a lot of drama. I just hate to use that word again, but if somebody has really just Googled the name Jalin Rashada and looked at everything that happened, through that NIL fiasco and in Florida, which as you guys already know, he's actually suing the University of Florida, the head coach, one of the boosters, one of the former staffers for that. It's almost like he just did not have a chance to succeed no matter where he was going to be. And I'll admit it, it's a bummer. I mean, he's Sun Devil legacy. His father played on the 1996 team that nearly went undefeated until he lost to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. They were this close to winning in the national championship. So it definitely was a lot of disappointment that Jaden Rashada didn't work out. So again, Sam Levitt really by default won the job, but I think he did play well in spring practice. Maybe had a rough start, but I think he improved more and more. As you may know, Arizona State brought in Jeff Sims, an embattled quarterback, you would say, that had a very rough year in Nebraska and had an up-and-down 3-year career at Georgia Tech before that. So I'm not saying that Jeff Smith doesn't have a chance to win the job in Tempe, but I think he can definitely provide a formidable competition to Sam Levitt, and we'll see how that quarterback race does pan out. But all in all, I don't think anybody would be shocked if the season opener you do see Sam Levitt behind center for the Sun Devils.
Non-conference schedule for you guys of Wyoming, Mississippi State, Texas State. We can tell you Wyoming can be a little prickly, so look out for that one. Keep your head on a swivel. But the first Big 12 game is here in the LBK, September 21st, man. We are looking forward to that. And before we get out of here, I'm just curious, kind of on a heat index scale, since we're talking about Arizona State and Arizona, how much do you guys really hate Arizona? Is it like a mild hate? Is it a 10 of 10 hate? Where's it at? First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road, or elevate your car's game to the next level of performance. Superchargers, exhaust kits, LED headlights, roof racks, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether it's power, speed, or design you're into, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. Just head over to ebay.com/motors now, where you'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and at no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply. How much do you guys really hate Arizona? Is it like a mild hate? Is it a 10 of 10 hate? Where's it at?
If you looked up in Google Arizona State Proposition 200, there was actually a ballot proposition that University of Arizona and its supporters tried to block from Arizona State being a 4-year college. So I know that maybe we're out here in the West and, people say, oh, yeah, Arizona State and Arizona can't possibly hate each other more than Ohio State, Michigan, or Florida, Georgia. But trust me, I don't think there's any college in the country that tried to prevent its rival from being a 4-year university through a ballot measure. So, it is definitely a heated rivalry. Both schools are just about 90 miles apart, so that helps the intensity as well. So, it is definitely a big time hatred between both schools. But make no mistake about it. I think Arizona State and Arizona really wanted to find a new home together, and they're happy that both of them are in the Big 12. Now, you asked that question to BYU and Utah. Some of them are just really not happy to be each other with the same conference. So maybe that's kind of like the weird rivalry of the Big 12. I don't know. But Arizona State and Arizona, I guarantee you that you will find out as time goes by. That is definitely going to be one of the more heated rivalries in the Big 12, without a doubt.
That's what makes it so much fun. So we're glad to have that in the Big 12 conference. Chris, anything else before we get out of here?
No, I don't think so. I just was, when you saw the schedule and you see, take me through real quick. You're just the schedule in general. We talked about you're going to have to go to some new places. You start out in Lubbock and everything like that. But what did you? Because the overall win total is like 4.5 games. And I'm curious what you thought there, like what the expectation was based on what your schedule is, because this is no more a round robin anymore. Everybody doesn't play everybody, and it's kind of based on how your schedule lays out. Take me through the dynamic when you put all that together, the win total versus the schedule and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, first of all, entering a 16-team conference, which I know is new for everybody, including the returning members of the Big 12, that's wild. That blows my mind. So there's going to be just a lot of effort just really keeping tabs on everybody. And it's almost like, okay, if you're not playing Arizona State this year, like I don't care about you. I'll worry about you in 25 or 26. I mean, that's really kind of the attitude that you almost have to take. But I think for Arizona State, they're really looking at modest expectations, and if they can double their win total, get to that 6-game bowl eligibility plateau, I think that will be deemed a success. I'm not saying rousing success. I'm not saying they're going to throw a parade in the middle of campus for that, but I think they'll see that as a step in the right direction, even though it's not a huge leap or anything like that. There's definitely going to be some challenging games out there. Texas Tech, on the road to start Big 12 schedule. I don't think that's really a cakewalk by any means. That trip to Manhattan in middle of November is definitely not going to be Chamber of Commerce weather over there. And look, I'll be the first one to say it. Arizona State loves the warm weather, doesn't like the cold weather that much. That's because of the climate that they're in, pun intended. So that's definitely going to be a challenge over there. But I think that Arizona State, when you look at the non-conference, for them to start 3-0, I don't think is really anything that would really strike people as a unplausible scenario or anything like that. I mean, Wyoming's going to be definitely a challenge. I mean, I think ASU fans are fairly familiar with that program, and they know that's not an easy season opener by any means. And Texas State, on the road to finish the non-conference slate. That better be a winnable game for Arizona State. Maybe an ugly win, but definitely should be a win. So that Mississippi State game in the middle, that might be a really clear indicator where this season is going to head for ASU. And I know that you have to be careful about not having the week 1 or week 2 overreaction, but I think that game really is going to tell us a lot. Again, assuming Arizona State does beat Wyoming in the season opener. So maybe I can get a better gauge of this Arizona State team at that point. But again, I think a 6-win season is within reach. The 4.5 over/under line I think is fair for Arizona State. And if ASU in their first year in the Big 12 can actually end up being bowl eligible, again, unlike a lot of the rude welcomes that some of the new members got last year, I think Arizona State would see that as success. But they definitely would not be complacent or content with that. They definitely want to get better each and every year. But obviously, just doubling your win total from one year to another, that's a feat that we don't see happening a lot in college football. So if ASU can achieve that, that definitely would be a step in the right direction.
Well, glad to have you guys in the conference, and appreciate your time here today. Looking forward to having y'all out here in West Texas. And I just want to let the viewing audience know that Chris Level is where he is, and a little pixelated on occasion because, and I don't know, you may already have a stomach full of heat puns for this episode, but this episode was set to be so hot of Locked On Texas Tech and talking to Arizona State, the fire alarm is ringing out loud in Chris's office. So he got on the jog quick to get out to the vehicle to have this conversation with Hod Rubino of ASUDevils.com, part of the Rivals Network. You can find him also on Twitter at Devils Digest. So, Chris, appreciate your extra effort, and Hod, appreciate your time, man. Enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Absolutely, and appreciate you guys being out there as always.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Make sure you get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode, and we hope to see you back for the next round of Locked On Texas Tech.